Good morning, good evening, or good afternoon, depending on where you're calling in from today. Welcome to ASQ's LED webinar series. This month, we're going to be talking with Rosa Melton about self-directed work teams sustaining success. Let me share my screen. We'll just go through a little bit of kind of what's going on. So here we are. You should be here for this idea of self-directed work teams for sustaining success with Rosa. I'm very excited about this. This is a big topic.
Hi, everyone, and welcome. Today, we're going to be talking about self-directed work teams, which is something I've been giving a lot of thought to the more places I go and the more people I meet. A little bit about me. I work with Manny at CI Consulting Services. And as he said before, I'm the human side of Lean. While we meet firmly in the middle with continuous improvement, I focus more on the human elements: leadership, communication, conflict resolution, teaming. My information is here. Please don't ever hesitate to reach out, email, connect with me on LinkedIn. I would love to meet you. We're going to start with this slide, and there are 3 basic categories, but 5 dimensions that we talk about for self-directed work teams. The very first slide on the upper left, we over me and are you above the line. Understand that I use this in every single presentation that I do, regardless of what it is, because I think it's so important. Just like when you have a terrific accomplishment and you really want to tell people, I graduated from college, or I just had a baby, or whatever it may be, that's part of the growth. That's part of the engagement. If you had nobody to tell it to, how much fun would that be, right? So understand that the team mentality, it's not about me. Whatever I do is great. However, when I share it with my team, when I collaborate with my team, it's beyond great. It just, gets multiplied by the nth degree. The second slide that you see, 5-minute meeting around a Gemba board. And actually, Manny and I were talking about that this morning. While all of the phases are important, this is probably one of the things that is a key to self-directed work teams. You need to keep your teams informed. And this is one very, very effective way to do so. Tying this whole culture of teaming, and being self-directed and understanding what the goals are, we get into lean thinking, because of course, if you want that culture, you want it to be a culture of improvement, a culture of growth. So 2-second lean thinking every day. Freedom within a framework, we're going to talk about that too, and span of control, which basically means, it may sound crude, but let people solve their own problems in their span of control. On my desk, I choose where I keep my pens and pencils, where I keep my stapler, where I position my keyboard, and so on and so forth. So that's an example of stuff that you can do every day yourself to make your life easier. And then you share those accomplishments and you share those little tiny changes with team members, or they see how much more efficient you are, and it begins to grow. The idea is that we want teams to succeed, not only individually, but as a whole. And self-directed work teams are aware, they're informed, they think and act like owners. They sustain the environment because it's working. And an added benefit, of course, is that supervisors get to work to their job description. I'm sure there's lots of supervisors out there who are interrupted 15 million times a day. Where is the screwdriver? Is it okay if I do this next? You want to curtail that. You want to make people autonomous enough, independent enough to be able to make those decisions, and of course, informed enough. Autonomous groups with the ability to make decisions, and their key characteristics are that there is a collective decision-making and problem-solving. So one guy's having an issue, one person, and you're going to get involved with your peers, with your associates, maybe the person upstream and downstream, to help you fix what it is, right? As a team, this is what we have to do today. Not what I have to do today, what we have to do today. This is the goal that we are trying to achieve. So obviously, we're all involved, we're all responsible, and we're all accountable. And as a team, as a well-functioning team, you help each other out with that. Call each other out and help each other out. And diverse skill sets, basically, it's not necessarily diverse in that you can do anything. Obviously, you have your job and you know what your job description is. However, diverse skill sets within a team basically allow you to be flexible. In a shop environment, things like cross-training address this so that if Joe isn't in today, Mary can take over. And it's not a problem. It's smooth. It's seamless. Okay, so you want to understand that as well. The shift in team dynamics between a traditional team and a self-directed team really has to do with three key issues. Okay, one is the structure. It's not hierarchical. It's not, leave your brain at the door when you get here. I will tell you what to do. Okay, it's self-directed in that it's collaborative. And believe me, supervisors out there, don't get nervous. We're not trying to bump your jobs or anything like that. The idea is, what your department or your area's goals are. You know this because you have the interaction with the next tier up of management. Okay, your team doesn't. So it's really up to you to make them understand where we need to be. Decision making, typically, and as I said before, people will come to you. What should I do next? Is it okay if I do this? There's something wrong here. Can you call maintenance? That's the kind of stuff you want to avoid. You want to empower people to be able to make those decisions. And they can only do so if they are well informed about what the goals are for the day, for the company, what the vision is. Roles and responsibilities can be flexible because you can turn followers into leaders. It does take a team, folks. Some of your benefits are going to be increased productivity, right? Faster decision making. It brings an example to mind that I thought was really interesting. I was working with a group, and one of the departments, it happened to be an area of the accounting department, and the accounting manager came to me and said, well, I have a really hard time. How am I going to coach my people when I'm answering questions all day long? And I said, well, what exactly are you talking about? What are the people that you're talking about? And this was an area of accounting that basically communicated and worked almost as a customer service approach with clients who were requesting refunds, mainly for shipping, like it didn't come on time or it came too early, whatever their issues may have been. And he said they're constantly coming to me to approve these refunds. I said, well, first of all, do you always give refunds? He said, I would say 99.5% of the time, yes, because this is a customer service. I said, okay, so what is the limit that you, as a manager, have to approve? And he said $5,000. I said, okay, so what's the range of refunds that you get requests for? He said, oh my gosh, anything from, $100 to $10,000. I said, fine, so why don't you do this? If you must approve everything that's $5,000 and above, why don't you give your people the authority, the lesser amounts, up to $4,999? If they think it's iffy, you will obviously designate the limits. If they think it's an iffy request, yes, they should come to you regardless of the amount. Most of the time, they're talking with people and they're issuing these refunds. Why would they need to interrupt you for a $100 refund? I said, at the end of the day, you have 4 people. And if each person is coming to you 5 times a day for a signature or a sign-off on a refund under $5,000, that's 20 interruptions that you can eliminate right off the bat. So that's the kind of mindset that we're talking about. The idea of informing people, if people know what the goal is, if your teams know what the vision is, what they need to accomplish, you're generating employee engagement. You're giving people job satisfaction because they know they're in on it. They're part of the game. They have skin in the game. Different perspectives. Think about this. Who knows the job best other than the person who's actually doing it? So who can give you some insights as to the fix-its that they do every day, as opposed to let's just fix it forever. Let's make it sustainable. And of course, agility. If people are informed, you have your work schedule for the day, right? And, a curveball comes in. This client needs this ASAP for whatever reason. What happens? Okay. If people aren't aware and informed of that, all hell breaks loose, and it ties up a great deal of your day trying to get everything into place. Understanding these benefits, I think you can all see the kind of benefits in terms of time saving, in terms of decision making, and in terms of your employees feeling vested. freedom to plan and work and make decisions, shared leadership, and rotating goals. I mean, depending on the situation, different people in the team are going to take the lead depending on what's going on. And accountability, it's not about me. It's not about him or her or them. It's about us. Now we can talk with a little bit more understanding, I think, of some of the dimensions of teams. Okay, this is one of my crazy mind maps that I've done when I have ideas. So wouldn't it be great, guys, if we could all get our work teams together in that way? It would be huge. Think about what would happen to your business. I got to believe that curve would spike straight up. That being said, these are the dimensions, I think, when you're talking about nuts and bolts of things that we can do to build a self-directed work team. We'll start with preparing the team. Okay. We all know that some people react very badly to change. You know, they get real nervous and scared and no, not me. Go change somebody else. Go change the baby. Okay. So you absolutely want to prepare the team, and you start doing that by setting goals. I'm not just talking about the goals that are going to get today done. I'm talking about understand where we want to be, right? We want to deliver a high quality product at a fair price with great, outstanding customer service. Okay, that's the vision. That's where we as a company want to be. So then when you start asking those questions, right? All right, so what are we going to do? This is our goal. How do I fit into that? Right? I'm, a lowly person on the hierarchy scale. How am I going to contribute to that? And that's super important, folks. Again, we go back to that whole engagement piece. People need to feel that what they are doing matters. They need to feel relevant. They need to feel like they're contributing. And I think in preparing your team, let's take the place where I last worked, which was a military subcontractor, and we made parts for submarines. My job is to make sure that the parts that need to be welded get put on a fixture and set up a certain way. When I used to walk around and ask people what they did, when I first started, they'd say, I'm a fitter. And I'd say, no, you're not. You help build submarines. That's what you do. Well, yeah, that's what you do, because if you don't do your part, everything down the line is affected, and you ultimately affect the outcome in a positive or negative way, depending on what you do. The graphic that we have here also helps you to do that, because yes, we have a vision. This is our corporate vision. This is where we want to be. You don't do that in a day. It doesn't happen. There's no magic wand, and you have to take little steps. So while your vision might be your target condition, your team's target condition could be very different to make sure that those parts get put on the fixtures correctly and easily so the welders can do their bit. And then it gets taken down and moved to the next place so the next people can do their bit, and so on and so forth. Those are little target conditions that everyone can relate to. Setting a communication standard. If people aren't informed, if they don't know what the goals are, I'm talking about daily goals, and I'm talking about if people aren't aware of where the company wants to be, guess what? It's just a job. You're just coming in, doing your thing, and going home. No, you want to be part of that collaboration. How many of you really go to work and say, okay, I'm just going to show up, do my work, and leave? I don't want to know about anything else. Of course not. We're human. We're curious. Cascading goals talks back to the graphic, what I said before. Little goals, big goals. Remember what I said before about span of control? We're going to talk about that as well. Do what you can and do it to the best of your ability. Do it to help the person who's next. Do it to help your peers, your department, whatever it may be. But at the end of the day, you're going to help your company reach that goal. Resistance to change is hard. That's why preparing the team is so important. The key takeaway here, to make people, departments, whatever, understand what they do, what they specifically do. I don't care if you're a purchaser, if you're an analyst, if you're the receptionist, understand how what you do really feeds the goal. But communication is the key. People don't know You know, you can forgive ignorance. They know their jobs. Remember the example about the gentleman in the engine room? Okay, we know we don't have to be quiet right now. Might be a good time to change filters and do what else. People know this stuff. They're doing their job and they know their job better than anybody. So if you combine that knowledge and ability with the knowledge of what we need to achieve, okay, we might have a very busy day today. We have a lot of stuff going out today. We have to get through this. What's the best way? What are we going to do? I'm going to give you an example, but think about this. I was in a situation where a manager told me a story that he was so impressed because one of his machine operators, they had 3 jobs to complete that day. Unless something is really a priority, if we do 1 and 3 together, either at the beginning or at the end of the day, we'll eliminate one change up. And that's going to save us about 45 minutes. Is it okay? Now, that is exactly the kind of thinking that you want to empower people to do. That's the kind of thinking that knowledge brings. Okay. So daily 5-minute meetings using a Gemba board, because the beauty of a Gemba board, if you do it right, you're consistent. It happens daily. But more importantly, every single person in that department in that team can contribute. If there's an issue, it's on the board. If something, again, you get a curveball, people know. And when they know, they can act in a manner that's correct. I'm not saying that turn them loose, let them run free. No, of course not. You know, you have to define limits and you have to define abilities. And once you do that, then you can start understanding how people, they understand their decisions. And you do that with structured loops, feedback loops. Do employee surveys, have a suggestion box, have those conversations during your 5-minute meeting. Okay, this came up yesterday. Go back to the example. Yesterday, we had to do 2 different setup changes because the first and third job were the same settings and the second one wasn't. Well, why didn't you consider joining both? It's a two-way street. Freedom within the framework. I've said that a few times. And what that has to do with is really what people can and cannot do because you have to set boundaries. So if you want me to make decisions, as in the example of the accounting department, you need to tell me what my boundaries are. When do I come to you to ask you the question? When am I not able to make that decision? And you draw those parameters. In the case of the accounting example, it was very simple, $5,000, or if it's iffy, if it's questionable. Okay, do your due diligence, make sure that things were delivered, nothing was damaged, et cetera, et cetera. And if they're still asking for a refund, come to me. We'll see who it is and how we can talk about it. But if it's under $5,000 and it's straight up, it's legitimate, so people understand their boundaries. Framework defines their span of control. And if you look at this graphic, the little person in the circle, that's his area. That's what he can control. Another situation that came up that I thought was really funny. We were at a tour on Monday at SnapCab, and they were telling us a story about all this mess on the floor because guys were working fast and they would just throw debris on the ground. One of the CI people asked, well, why is the floor always so messy here? Well, we don't have a garbage can. Really? That was it. Put a trash bin near where they are, and they were getting the stuff in. And guess what? The floor was clean. But that's an example of people's span of control. That would have totally been within that operator's span of control. I'm tired of throwing stuff on the floor. It's messy. It looks gross, and it gives me more work to do after I finish my job. Let me get a bin. Let me, put something in place to fix that. That's the kind of thinking that you encourage. Request informed decisions versus asking what to do. If you're a supervisor, what are you suggesting? What do you think we should work on next? Well, to the setup direction. Well, boss, unless it's a priority, if we do number 3 right now, we save the setup time. And then all we have to do is set up for number 2 job, which will be last. Okay, how's your suggestion going to affect those results? I think it's going to save us 45 minutes that we can maybe use to prep for tomorrow. Great. Okay, when you get to that point where people start thinking that way, give them the ability to make those decisions, but set very clear parameters as to when they need to come to you as a supervisor. How your team reacts to unplanned occurrences. If they know it's coming, Okay, they can stop what they're doing at a place where they can resume. They can do the setup that they need. They know what's happening, and it becomes a lot smoother and a lot more seamless.
How does one lead up? That is contributing to decision making, even if they're not operating in a supervisory or manager capacity. In other words, you know what? I'm an assembler. Like, you're telling me I can have a voice in what we do in my job?
Absolutely. Think of a Gemba board. A Gemba board talks to the next slide, which is how you measure. If this problem comes up, note it on the Gemba board. Put your name on it. And if when it comes up, 4, 5, 6, 8, 10 times, it's going to get measured. Well, darn, this problem has taken, 8 hours away from our week. Why don't we just take an hour to fix it, to improve it, and save the other 7 hours? We had that situation. As a matter of fact, it was 8 hours in another company that we're working with. They have a cart that lifts items that they're working with. And they have one of those carts where you have to kick the bar. They timed it. And it literally was taking 8 hours a week just to get those carts used by a bunch of different people during a bunch of different processes up to the right height. Now, does that make sense? So if you're an operator and you've been asking for electric carts, automatic carts that lift automatically, right? And nobody's paying attention to you. If you instill that Gemba board and you're posting that every day, it took me 20 minutes today. It took me 12 minutes today. It took me 15 minutes today. It took me 8 minutes today. They start adding that up, and you know what? It makes a difference. That's how your voice is heard. But you have to give people the forum to do that. And again, 5-minute meetings and Gemba boards with the supervisor is where it starts. And Gemba walks with senior management on a regular basis too, where that two-way conversation with leadership is available. So what do you think is going on today? What bugs you?
20% of the material is now over there. We're going to stock it. We're going to always have a spot for it. And then stuff that came off of there, now we're sorting these two.
And if managers ask that question, or why don't you tell me, how you can make this better? Don't complain to me. We're not the complaint department, right? Bring us suggestions, bring us ideas, bring us solutions. I used to use that line a lot when I was the CI leader. Yeah, I'm not the complaint department, so what do you want to do about it? Challenge people. 2-second lean goes without saying. That's what you do in your span of control. Fix what bugs you. And tell me something good.
Well, pretty much, I ran the show. I did it all. Dwayne tried to help. He was terrible at it, and I fixed it up. There it is.
Take a bow. Take a bow. Woo! Make time for people to do it. Look, a half hour before lunch to work on CI projects, whether it's in their area or whether during a meeting they volunteer to help other people on a slightly larger project to fixing what doesn't work. Really, how would you feel if you knew you had a voice and you weren't afraid to express it? Right? Transformation is difficult. It doesn't happen in a day. It's gradual. People might get nervous. Some people may not really trust it. Well, he wants me to make the decision so he doesn't get in trouble. That is not the case. You have to build that trust because you have to be true to what you do and you have to be consistent with what you do. Developing future leaders by making people feel valued you really cannot get better than that. Those are some ways that you can make this work. I actually took this picture on Monday and stuck it in here last night. They actually reward mistakes. If you make a mistake and you really get chewed out, they make you feel like dirt. What are you going to do the next time you make a mistake? You're going to come out and say, oh, I did it again. Come on, beat me up. Or are you going to kind of push it off to the side? And if nobody knows, it'll be fine. I'll fix it before anybody finds out. That's crazy. Celebrate the mistakes. They're all learning opportunities. In my opinion, if a person makes a mistake, more often than not, it's the fault of the system. What in the system allowed them to make that mistake? So find it, figure it out, do a root cause, but certainly don't beat somebody up because you're never, ever going to get anybody to fess up again. And they're going to tell their team members. You think their team members are going to fess up when they make a mistake? Of course not. Think lean, think improvement. That's the takeaway. Mistakes count as opportunities. Any defect or error is an opportunity to learn. And that's where the communication piece comes in, and I come back to that. That is so huge in this concept of self-directed teams. People need to know. We started with this, and I hope that you can see the flow here. Starting with preparing your team. It's not me, it's us. It's not them, it's us. It's we. Okay, we do things. I don't do things. We do things. We're all in the know. I know as much as you do. What can you do within your own within your own span of control? And think and act like owners. Pretend the CEO is looking over your shoulder. Gauge your decisions for the good of the company. Gauge your decisions for the good of all involved. And if you can get that concept, that hopefully you as supervisors or managers, when operators adopt that mindset, you have really vested people and who care. It is not about they or them. There was one instance where a guy in the engine room went to the captain to tell him that something was wrong, and the captain did not allow they or them. It's we or us. And so this guy couldn't say, well, they messed it up because they didn't do the maintenance right or whatever it was.
Well, it's exactly that. And the guy was stuttering back and forth because he didn't know how to say it. He kept wanting to say they, being, a different department, maintenance, screwed something up. And the captain the previous day, as it turned out, had said, there is no more they or them. It's only we and us. And it was just funny about how we're so used to saying things in a certain way. How do you say, well, we did this and really mean it? So, it's a learning. He makes the point that, a lot of employees that aren't used to empowerment really need to learn. He says a refresher. I think it's even stronger than that. I think they need training wheels. They need guidance, especially when they're transitioning from that top down, I tell you, listen, to creating leaders. That's hard for people to get used to. Funny thing is, newer people will do better at that because they don't have the paradigms of the past.
Exactly.
To weigh them down.
Exactly.
So,
and that all comes back to trust. It comes back to coaching. It's okay. It really, I'm not doing this so that you get blamed instead of me. We don't play the blame game because it's we. It's us. It's not you or me. It's us. Where I used to work, they had people regularly celebrating 50th anniversaries of working there. So you can imagine the resistance that RCI groups got to change. It's like, no, don't fix it here. It's not broken. We've been doing it this way for 45 years. Yeah, no kidding. So yeah, you're going to get some resistance. This doesn't happen in a day. Don't expect it to, or you're going to lose your mind. This is gradual. This is something you build that trust. You ask for the opinions. You start doing those daily meetings and keep a Gemba board. People often, when I suggested Gemba boards, no, I don't have time for that. I'm not asking you to do it. I'm asking you to put this up for the benefit of your team so that during a Gemba meeting, you can make note of things. If there's an issue that's ongoing, why don't the three of you take a half an hour tomorrow and try to work on this? It makes sense. And once people start believing that, if you're consistent about it, yeah, it's definitely going to work.
Somebody made a point that said one thing that really helped them over the years in trying to create leaders is understanding something like a Myers-Briggs or a DISC personality profile, and really getting how people, they want to receive and give information, how they want to be spoken to with that understanding. Somebody else made the point that said when people are learning, when they're getting it, you have to, at some point, just kind of let the bear dance. It's like when a plane takes off, before it achieves stable flight, it's kind of bouncing around and people want to jump in, but sometimes you just got to let the process play out to its logical conclusion.
As much as I love what I do, webinars, for some reason, I am way less nervous standing in front of 1,000 people live than I am talking to 2 on a video call. So don't hold it against me. I work with a lot of teams, and I find that too often they have wonderful ideas, and we're planning the improvement of an area or a department. People have these great ideas and they really work on how they can implement it. And then they're like, but nobody listens to me and I don't know how to get it across. And, how can I prove to them that this is going to be valid? Data talks and blah, blah, blah walks. It comes down to very simply, if you don't have a Gemba board, you must have a bulletin board someplace where notices are put. Start putting a list up. Okay, this happened today. It happened again this afternoon. It happened again this day, and 3 times on that day, and so on and so forth. And when you have that documentation, as rudimentary as it may be, okay, take it, show your supervisor, show it to the general manager when he walks through the shop, show it to your project manager when he walks through the shop. Say, look, we've got these issues, okay, and look at how much time it took to fix this, and it happens over and over and over again. Okay, what more? Again, now you've got data of sorts, if that's the best you can do, because you don't have access to a computer perhaps every day at your workstation. You've got to make it real for yourselves and for everybody else. Think about one that Manny's fond of talking about, Pat's machine. Pat's not here, and he's the one who works it, and he's the one who knows it. Well, what's going to happen if Pat wins the lottery and never comes back to work? What, are we going to have to get a new machine? You need to understand, with that, to me, is a continuous improvement opportunity right there. Why is no one else trained to work this machine? Is it because Pat lords it over and doesn't let you near it when he's here? Okay, well, what do you think Pat would do if somebody came to him when he was there and said, Pat, it impresses the heck out of me how you managed to get this thing to work without a glitch all the time. Can you tell me a little bit about it? Maybe you want to share that with us. He wants to share.
Right. In my experience, Pat wants to share.
He does, just nobody's asking him.
That's Pat's job. Pat does it. Pat does a great job, whatever.
Okay.
But a training matrix is
Absolutely
what you see when you're in danger of having Pat's machine or Pat's system in the office. Pat lives in the office too.
You went to an office and the copier was over here, but the paper was way back there. And you noticed the receptionist went forth to get paper, and you asked, why is the copier here and the paper over there? And very innocently, her response was, well, because the copier used to be over there.
Right.
Okay, they moved it here to make it more convenient for everybody else, but what about the stuff it takes to run it?
Again, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you're calling from. And really appreciate you being here today, folks. Anyway, Rosa, any last minute thoughts?
Yes, I think if there's one takeaway, is there is no they or them, there is only we and us. And the sooner we start thinking that way, the sooner that we are all going to achieve greatness. Thank you so much, folks.
Oh, Rosa, it was really a pleasure having you. And we'll probably see you on here again before long. So, all right, folks, enjoy the rest of your morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are. And I'm looking forward to seeing you guys next month. A couple of things. Hit LED up several different ways, LinkedIn, YouTube, as well as my ASQ.